Good morning, everyone. My name is Paul Anumudu. Currently work in Roche. I work a lot with DevOps engineers, and all of what I'm about to share is coming from my experience working in the trenches and understanding what the vibe is and the emotions in this age of AI. I have two unique, very interesting colleagues. One of them is Albert, and the other is Danny. Albie is the type of person that jumps on every news you see. Social media, conspiracy theories, he believes everything, hook, line, and sinker. So I was in the office, Albie sits far away from me, and he says, "Oi, Paul, you're gonna be talking in DevOps Days, Geneva, isn't it?" And I said, "Yes." "And that's the topic about future-proofing DevOps engineering roles?" I said, "Yeah." "Are you going to tell them the truth?" "And what's the truth, Albie?" "Well, AI is going to take over all their jobs. There'll be literally nothing." And I was like, "That isn't true." And he says, "No, I see a shitstorm brewing in the horizon." That's the kind of colleague I have. And then there's Danny that believes, nothing's going to happen. However, I think I'll kick off with a story that I find very interesting. Imagine there is a power outage while there's an ongoing surgery in a hospital in Tokyo. We know Japan is well known for having all the devices, robotics that are way advanced, using all the tools and the gadgets. However, there's a power cut, a power failure, impacting all the devices that are supposed to operate with precision. However, in this silence, all we can hear is the strong, steady voice of a surgeon working with experience, collaboration, and adaptability. Shortly after, the power comes back up, but we know that it's not the mechanisms, it's not the robots, it's not the devices that have saved the life of the patients, but on human skill, trust, and collaboration between these surgeons. I'll be talking you through moving away from autonomy to, from automation to autonomy, and how we future-proof DevOps roles in an AI-powered world. I will lean in slightly into a couple of steps, take you through a journey, and this is about the growing influence of AI within DevOps and what the problem is, because there is a lot of positive news out there. And I'll take you a step back to see the history of DevOps and how far we've come, but split this as well from the facts. I will try to peel off the veil, take off the fluff, so that we can look at DevOps realities, what is really happening within the trenches. And then we shall also see the hype and what leadership seems to be obsessed about versus what is the real experience of the developer. And then we will look at the enhanced DevOps leader, someone who's able to leverage AI, see AI either as a threat or a tool. We shall wrap up with a couple of recommendations and a call to action. So the growing influence of AI within DevOps, of course, it's the news. We're surrounded by lots of information, social media, bombarded left, right, and center. Get excited about AI. It's going to ride a new infrastructure wave. Artificial intelligence is meant to transform operations and DevOps. Let's see how AI is reshaping DevOps automation in 2025, making it faster and smarter. In an age of increased information, we see all this in social media, LinkedIn, YouTube videos, Instagram. It's good to stay steady. The promises of a brighter DevOps future augmented by AI is evident. However, beneath the surface, what does this really show us? What does this really mean? A lot of the times, the articles and the things we see are sparked by experts. But I'll ask us to be very cautious. within this conversation I want us all to have, we have to lean into our human capabilities. Beware of the experts. And I'm just giving you a quote from a very renowned author, Chris Jackson, who says, "I have never claimed to be an expert on anything. In fact, anyone claiming to be an expert on anything, in my opinion, should immediately be viewed with suspicion." So I'm calling us all to embrace critical thinking. Do not go with the waves. Analyzing everything we see on the news, both positive and negative, I have narrowed down all the worries. What is the challenge we see? If AI is supposed to march us forward into this revolutionary world where everything is rosy, what then is the problem? And I was able to summarize it to 4 main strands. The first is the worry about the destabilization of the entire IT industry and ecosystem. Number 2, the most popular one, the threat to careers, like my friend Albie thinks, and the significant job role changes. There is also worries, especially for some industries, like the financial. I work in the pharmaceutical biotech, and there is worries about the introduction of more security vulnerabilities, data privacy, compliance issues. And number 4, another very popular one, is ethical concerns, bias in AI algorithms, and of course, the maintenance overhead, impact to the environment, and all of that. So let's go back a little bit in history, see how DevOps has been evolving. Is this the first time we've seen a big trend? We'll find out. 2001, the Agile Manifesto pops up. All the tech experts go into a resort. We know the story. Agile is like, I call him the senior brother of DevOps. In 2008, shortly, about 8 years after, DevOps is born. Patrick Dubois and Andrew Schaefer attend a session in Toronto. And in 2009, just 1 year later, we see the first DevOps Days inaugurated, held in Ghent in Belgium. Flash forward to 2009 and 2011, we begin to see the scaling of this idea, of this concept, and of this technology culture. Industry-leading software vendors in the market are beginning to adopt enterprise DevOps tools. In 2013, we see the rise of the Phoenix Project, very popular book, and in 2016, the DevOps Handbook. When you accelerate to 2025, we're already seeing lots of changes, different types of AI within the DevOps microcosm. Things like machine learning, natural language processing, chatbots, virtual assistants, vibe coding, agentic AI, and the list goes on. Now, stepping away from what we see from the experts and going a little bit further into proper research conducted by well-renowned organizations like Boston, Goldman Sachs, we begin to see another slight different trend. On one hand, there is a lot of promise. The DevOps market, AI within DevOps, is expected to explode, worth $24.9 billion by 2033. I believe this could be more. 61% of organizations have reported that AI in DevOps has enhanced delivering quality. Researchers, for example, MIT Boston, have forecasted that by 2025, AI and automation could replace 2 million manufacturing jobs. And PwC also has a report that 75% of CEOs believe that AI will substantially alter business practices within the next 3 years. So we've heard all the opinions, some of them expert opinions. What should we do next? I believe the best way to step into this is to peel back all the fluff and look at the reality. Let us narrow and zoom into the life of a DevOps engineer. What do we see on a day-to-day? So when you peel off all the fluff, let's focus on the core. And you would notice that there seems to be a dichotomy. There is a slight gap between the day-to-day reality of most developers and conversations about what the developers actually want. Why is this? Iqbal Shani, chief product officer at GitHub has said, in many cases, the things that the developers value and want to do are in conflict. We see a contrast from how their performance is measured. So how do we bring these two things together? We notice that this difference is focusing a lot on quantity, the chase after volume rather than quality, focusing on value. I give you some examples. Managers seem obsessed with the number of incidents resolved. Rather, maybe we should be thinking about quality. How are these incidents handled? How do we run our root cause analysis? How do we work towards prevention rather than brag about how many have been resolved? And what's the communication quality? I know everyone here has worked with the Fibonacci sequence, story points. We're obsessed by this. How many story points have we completed? Perhaps we should switch our focus a little bit more on the value to the users. Does the features even solve any problem from a user experience perspective? And how many lines of codes have been shipped? Rather, maybe we should focus on the impact of what has been delivered, of the shipped code, and how it is reducing friction. There's also the obsession with the velocity metrics and other metrics used as key performance KPIs. Maybe we should zoom in and narrow, focusing on team collaboration and how we unlock better experiences for all our users. Why are we always obsessed with volume, quantity, rather than quality? I personally had a deep reflection, and I was thinking, I think we can trace it to three major things. I'll approach it from a psychological perspective, evolution, and of course, the corporate world. Now, unpick the psychological part. It's about the cognitive shortcut. Humans, we are used to using numbers to run a mental shortcut. Naturally, the brain is a bit lazy, so we use numbers to access and understand the world. So quantity is tangible, easy to measure and compare, unlike quality that's often nuanced and can be subjective. And then there is evolution. Dating back to the Stone Age, Iron Age, more always meant security. In ancient environments, more means survival. We were fruit gatherers, hunters. We allied with larger communities to stay safe. So more food, more tools, more allies increase your chances of survival. This way of thinking is hardwired, even in our modern perspectives. And then there is the corporate world, managerial visibility. We are used to seeing all the reports coming from quarterly reports. How is the stock performing? What have we achieved at the end of the quarter, at the end of the year, at the end of the month? So this is where this pressure is coming from. How do we step away from this? We step away from this mentality and thinking by focusing on what the day-to-day life looks for the DevOps engineer. Just a very quick high-level research that was conducted, and you can see the statistics. Waiting for builds and tests, 27% of the time, writing new code, writing tests, deploying code to production, waiting on code reviews, and talking to customers. Now we have zoomed in to the day-to-day life of the software or DevOps engineer. What then do we notice? We need to focus on the developer experience. And what does this mean? It's all about the developer productivity, the impact, the developer satisfaction, and then we get to the developer experience. We should start to focus on some of these aspects. Now, if we introduce AI into this space, what do we notice? Is AI going to solve all the solution? Is it going to be the key to the 100% excellent developer experience? Is AI the silver bullet for the DevOps experience? Let's begin to narrow down and zoom in. What are the limits? Is it unlimited? Or is it perfect? Or do we need some improvement? So what do we observe? Working with lots of DevOps engineers on the cloud, working on hosting zones, and working in the trenches very close. These have been my observation. Talking to developers, talking to DevOps engineers, software engineers, I have noticed the following. One of the limitations of AI comes from the lack of advanced reasoning. So for example, getting AI to write Ansible playbooks and Terraform scripts is not enough. These scripts need environmental specific parameters that AI is unable to know. And there is something, I believe, is the 70% versus the 30%. AI is usually good with what we call the happy path, one-shotting, scaffolding basic features, but I've been told by colleagues I work with that the actual engineering is in the 30%. That is where engineering really happens. This is the difference between code that somehow works, where we swag during the demos, versus code that is production ready. I referenced slightly in the past about the security and vulnerability part of things. AI might also overlook subtle security vulnerabilities or misjudge compliance requirements. It's not quite there yet. And when you think about the critical and contextual judgments, AI excels at pattern recognitions, looking at logs from observability, secrets management, automation, but lacks the contextual understanding, lacks the ability to comprehend a business impact or unforeseen consequences and circumstances. There is what Fred Brooks, a renowned author, calls the accidental and the essential complexity. AI is good with the accidental complexity, automating repetitive tasks, streamlining workflows, but it's unable to handle essential complexity that requires deep understanding, contextual reasoning, and adaptability. And there is something we call the duct tape developer or the flash dev. I don't know if you've ever worked with a young, inexperienced developer that is keen to please you, runs from one code to the other, but continues to leave bugs along the way. You have to go back and ensure that these have been fixed. AI can be seen like that when left to work on its own. And what I find very interesting is that an organization has actually run a simulation. Carnegie Mellon University ran an experiment where an entire software company was resourced with AI agents from Google, OpenAI, Anthropic, Meta. And what was the result? It was laughable. It just didn't work. So there is no scenario where we would see an entire organization running on AI alone. So what happens then? AI is actually better in the hands of the developed of an experienced DevOps engineer. And this makes it more of a tool that enhances you, not a threat. But how do we proceed with this? It means AI strongly requires the human oversight. AI in the hands of a seasoned developer is a true power combination because the experienced developer does not blindly trust AI. They are able to spot red flags, roll back when needed, refactor constantly, and think through edge cases, multiple scenarios, challenging even architectural decisions that have been made with confidence. So consider AI as the autopilot in aviation. It handles routine functions and tasks brilliantly, but requires human guidance through critical decisions and the ability to handle unexpected situations. What is our call to action then? What are the recommendations I'm about to give? It is first about embracing critical thinking. I started with that, giving you the perspectives of two of my colleagues, giving you the perspectives we see from the news, from the media, social media, LinkedIn. We're bombarded by this information, but let's take a step back and be very critical. This is the time we should embrace critical thinking. AI is able to bombard you with the how. You throw in a prompt and it throws lots of recommendations to you, but we should continue to take ownership of the why. Critical thinking is that element that prompts you to ask yourself, where and what is the source of this LLM? Who is putting these models together? How are they even being built? What data is being fed into them? The next thing is about storytelling. I'm emphasizing how we lean into this human faculty we have. It is only humans that tell stories. We are able to sync a narrative with what a user needs. This is how we link a story and a narrative with engineering to prepare solutions that impact users positively. The ability to understand the business acumen, the business rationale behind all the decisions we make. User centricity. AI is unable to automate empathy. It is only humans, people like me and you in this room, that can fall in love with the problem, enjoy those challenges, and look for decisions and solutions that work in a contemporary world. So imagine in a healthcare scenario where a DevOps engineer is optimizing release pipelines, not just for throughput, but to reduce deployment downtime for critical healthcare applications where patients are really relying on these applications. That is not automation. That is empathy in action. What about the environment in which we work? Is it possible to be your best self in a tensed environment? That is not possible because a stressed out DevOps team won't question flaky CI pipelines, or neither would they be even able to challenge infrastructure as code patterns or take the risk to refactor legacy code. Safe teams ship better code. AI just follow the script. Let us lean into our human experience to generate a safe space for work. You want to create an environment you're happy to go to work on a day-to-day. Now, if you are going to future-proof DevOps engineering roles, I believe we can tackle this from two different scenarios. We need to think about the entry level to these roles, and the other aspect is when an engineer is experienced. So we start with the experienced engineer. When we are armed with some of the tooling we get from AI, I believe there is a change, there is a transformation, a metamorphosis. But to achieve this, we must not shy away from these tools. We have to continue experimenting. DevOps engineers have to evolve, merging this human judgment with AI capabilities. The worst thing that can happen within this trend is what I believe to be skills atrophy. If you stop using a muscle, it becomes numb. We have to continue flexing these natural coding muscles to avoid skills atrophy. Do not, in any way, shape, or form, give in to complacency. And there is these returning to those old books and timeless wisdom. A couple of books I would recommend are like Clean Code, The Pragmatic Programmer, The Phoenix Project, even the DevOps Handbook. These books have been written in the last 8 to 10 years, but when you go back to them, you realize that some of the challenges and the principles being used remain relevant today. Whether there is AI or vibe coding or agentic AI, you can continue to use some of these principles. Let's go back and revisit them. And then what happens on the entry level, the junior developer, the intern? If you take a step back, you can notice we're getting into very dangerous waters. So, an organization known as Klarna halted new developer hires and laid off 10% of its workforce. And these freeze in employment is mainly impacting junior developers. We would notice Meta, Microsoft, and Google, these are all tech giants that have implemented significant recruitment freezes, mainly impacting junior developers. Some people are thinking, oh, if there is an agent, why hire anyway? It's a very risky tradition that we're going into. So, what are the recommendations within this space on the entry level? It's about building the future of the talent pipeline. If you have no juniors today, there will be no seniors tomorrow. Companies will be facing critical skills gap. We here in the room have the capacity to make those decisions. Let's take this message out there. Let's bring in new hires. What about the legacy system lifelines? Junior developers have that essential skill for maintaining and understanding legacy systems. As they grow within an organization, they carry forward critical institutional knowledge that AI in no way can replicate. They also bring a lot of diversity to the team, generational diversity. Junior developers, in some cases, are actually AI native. They bring in fresh perspective. They challenge us with fresh, new ideas. Their approaches can challenge the status quo and improve things for the better. Bringing them in is a way we support sustainable growth within the industry. And then there is also the mentorship life cycle. By coaching others, we actually improve on ourselves. It's like a positive cycle of events where teaching juniors sharpens the skills and experiences of the senior engineers, improving their communication skills and ensuring that we have a brighter future. Some of the ways we can achieve this is by running very good mentoring programs between senior and junior DevOps engineers. That's it. Any questions?